Recording.
All right, so page Kuf Yud Gimel. We were speaking about the descent from Atzilus to Bria, Abraham. Then we started speaking about the general descent of the lights from the Orient Sof to go into Atzilus. Same deal. The external part of the Orient Sof comes in and becomes the lights in the vessels. And then we started talking about the descent from each Sphira to Sphira in Atzilus itself, that you only receive the external part each time. The idea of the external flow. And ultimately we kind of came with this realization that even the Tainug, which is in Keser, because Keser is Ratzon and Tainug, when it winds up coming into the 10 Spheros, the Tainug is obviously majorly diminished, because that light is only the Chetzonius of the Tainug. So whatever Tainug you can actually grasp from your Seichel or your Midos, it's obviously a huge contraction to the Etzem Inyan of Tainug. That's more or less where we got to. But let's just move right on, because I think the next line takes us where we want to go. Amnam yesh od ofen hamshacha, the bottom of the page. There's another way of drawing down the light. Al derech mashal inyan chushim shebenefesh, and this is like the senses. As we said, the senses, even though they're very, very external, somehow they trigger the very etzem, the essential pleasure, the essential pleasure in sight and seeing and hearing and tasting. We said all these things. Somehow they grip the very essence, that which the intellect and the emotions cannot do. So there's another ofen hamshacha, and this is the chushim of the nefesh. The sense is the kamo kein hu lamayla, and so it is above. Kamo shekasu v'yirech Hashem esreach hanichoach, that Hashem smelled the pleasant smell of the sacrifices. All of a sudden, Hashem also has senses, so to speak. Shezeh yegil b'chinas atmos or into baruch. We know that the secret of the karbonos goes with the secret of the Ein Sof. So we see that when Hashem smells, it triggers the essence of the Orient Sof. To the point that it actually changes everything. When Hashem smells the sacrifices, He changes His mind. The whole Ishtalshalus changes, because He triggers an Or Chadash to come down. Like we say by the sacrifice, a pleasing smell to Hashem. That all of a sudden there was din in the Ishtalshalus, like negativity was coming down, and through the sacrifices, Hashem changes and atones for our sins. The sacrifice atones. How can you atone? According to the Seder Ishtalshalus, everything is fixed. In other words, the idea is that there's a nature organized way, a justice system. If you do something wrong, you bring din upon yourself. If you do something right, you bring chesed. So that's the system. So how can you all of a sudden have your sins atoned for? That's going out of the system. It's basically breaking the rules. It can only happen if you draw from beyond the system, from the hamshach of the Orient Sof. And that's what happens when you offer a sacrifice. Adam ki yakriv mikem, you still offer sacrifice. Meaning when you go out of your way and bring your fat to the altar, you bring your having skafi and so forth. This is, you can change the Seder Shtosh, you can change nature. Kenoda, as it's known. Ru'ayidei reach hakarbanos shereichan ol l'shamayim. It's through the scent of the sacrifice which goes up to heaven. The raza de korbana ola ad raz de Ein Sof, as we said. The secret of the sacrifice has a connection to the Ein Sof itself. V'nimshach ayidei zeh nichoach l'Hashem. All of a sudden it comes pleasure to Hashem. So it says, let me hear your voice. In other words, that's called kala d'oraisa. Also when we let forth Torah, and Hashem wants to hear our voice. Hearing, right? So just over there is smelling, here it's hearing. Because the Torah comes from Or Panecha, it comes from the light of your face, the Penimius. Right? We say that your voice is beautiful, your appearance is beautiful. So in other words, going on the Indian of Torah, your voice and your appearance, again, these are senses that trigger Hashem. The Kai al Maisa Mitzvahs. This refers to the voice is sweet and the appearance is beautiful, is the Torah and the mitzvahs. And all this reaches to the essence of Hashem. So karbanos, basically it's avoda, tefillah, and gulus chasadim, and and kind deeds.
So these are what? These are the cheshbon of your soul?
These are. It says that when we perform these, Hashem smells them, He hears them, and He sees them. Right. So in other words, and when you smell, hear, and see, that means your essence is being brought to bear, which is why all these things have the power of changing the Seder Shtalshlus. You get it?
So it's not a mashal of the cheshbon of the nefesh. It's another mashal to explain what cheshbon and nefesh are.
It's no, all these things. The main thing that we're getting out of all
These
this
are
is
the
Hashmiyeni. In other words, the idea is that He's saying here, or Hashem smells, Reach Nichoach. The whole point is that these are issues of Hashem displaying His senses.
Okay.
Hashem is showing off His senses over here. And where do we see Hashem's senses come to bear? When we do Torah, when we do mitzvahs.
Right.
So that means that the essence of Hashem is arriving, which means that there's paras avonos and all kinds of l'maylim seder shtoshlos.
Because it triggers like your essence, just like it triggers your essence, it's kind of like triggering Hashem's essence.
You know, it's just like senses. Not that the mitzvahs per se trigger your essence,
No,
but just like your senses trigger your essence, Hashem's senses trigger His essence. And so it is with the higher visions, the sight above. The erech anpin bezah, like it says that Hashem peers from the state of erech anpin, the keser, into zah. The berivi stalkus nimshach bechinas atmos or the keser. That when Hashem peers and looks, it draws from the essential light of the keser. Like it says, the tzitz, also this idea of atonement. The tzitz was the plate on top of the Kohen Gadol's head, which was able to be mechaper. And the idea of tzitz, the word tzitz means to look, to peer, meaning to say that this object was like a continuous peering of erech anpin, of keser, into the forehead of zah, meaning to say, hamshachim from above the Seder Mishtashlus, accessing the senses. So they say, Na'avrim kol adinim v'gevuros chule. This passes over all the harsh judgments. Mokein yesh b'chem histalkus derech anpin malchus. Right, and you can also have a peering of erech anpin of keser not only into zah but all the way down into malchus. As it says, einav kiyonim, v'einayich kiyonim. It says his eyes were like doves. You know that they stare into each other's eyes. Just like these turtle doves that stare into each other's eyes, do you do these kashrus with devekus atzmam, but taining shalahem, mistakbish shalahem, right? That they're this connection and this crazy devekus. You can see these birds; they stare into their eyes the whole day long. This tainu comes from the staring, just like we said before. A person like can't take their eyes off something that a beautiful picture. So these guys are just stuck to each other. Each one's looking at the other one, and they're clinging to each other in a devekus. It says elsewhere. So he says this is the Indian of the Eibishter looking down at Malchus. There's a certain opening and a clinging of the essence of Hashem down all the way into the world. That's what the Jewish people are saying, that His eyes are like doves. That Hashem is looking at us with a deep inner pleasure because we're performing the sacrifice, because we're learning Torah, because we're doing the mitzvahs. It creates a peering into us from Hashem. And that's the idea of Ya'er Panav Elecha. That Hashem shines His countenance, His face upon us, His penimius. Bechinas ha'aras panim b'neshamas Yisrael lamata. This is what we talk about the whole time, panim b'panim, instead of achor b'achor, which is essentially available, the whole expression that we explained a minute ago, that the external part of the higher one comes to the internal part of the inner one. That's like a trickle down of achor ba'achor. But this is called panim b'panim. The senses get you to the haras panim, the neshamas Yisrael lamata, b'chinas malchus lamayla. So either it's the Jewish people below or the sphere of malchus above, sort of represent the same thing. And this is the idea that erech anpin can stare into even malchus. And what it is the flow of the 13 attributes of mercy from keser into malchus. The idea of the 13 attributes of mercy is that they are above the Seder Shtalshlus, and yet they can flow through, and they're sort of like we talk about the hairs of Klippa, there's also the hairs of Kedusha, if you recall, and the hairs of Kedusha were the avenue with which infinite light can come into the world. It's also like this this amazing tzimtzum, but it's not a tzimtzum which covers elokus. It's a tzimtzum which enables infinite to come into finite. That's why the 13 attributes of the hair or of the beard are flowing into the world and allowing this panim b'panim relationship. Shezein kshute kala the bechinas malchus, and it's the idea of the beautifying of the kala, which is malchus. Shnimshachim la verech anpin, right? She's getting married. In other words, there's going to be this panemius connection. So she beautifies herself. What's her beautification in order to draw the male, so to speak? This is Torah, mitzvahs, tefillah, the idea of that which draws the peering eyes of her husband, which is the Eibishter. That's why suddenly Malchus can be called a beauty. Like we talked about this before. Why is the matriarchs, they're described as beauties? It's like sort of not lefi kavodan to describe them as yafas Torah, yafas, But the idea is that their deeds are so beautiful that it makes Hashem stare at them like yafas mareh. So Knesset Yisrael is called this beautiful kala because it draws the eyes and the senses of the Yud Gimel Midos HaRachamim to flow down. K'mosh k'zud b'makom acher. The Yedua, the Yud Gimel Tikkunei Dikna Hen Bechinas Panemius HaKeser. The 13 attributes of mercy are actually the Panemius of the Keser. So they flow through Erech Anpin, which is the Chitzonius. And how do you get it? Through the eyes. And how do you get someone to look at you? You have to be beautiful.
Why do you get it through the eyes? What is it?
What's that?
Why do you get it through the eyes?
Again, the senses. Right? The highest panemius power.
You having Hashem look at you, that's how you get this flow? That's how...
Hashem's look at you is his senses.
Okay.
In the senses, for some reason, dwells the essence, which he's calling here Panemius HaKeser, or the Yud Gimel Midas HaRachamim. So when you look beautiful, Hashem stares at you. Right? It's like pretty much the way it goes out there. So you look beautiful. How do you look beautiful to Hashem? Reach nichoach, kol arev, mare na'aveh. You have these deeds, which creates a peering. The peering is essentially the ha'aras panim, which is the flow of the Panemius HaKeser coming through this eyesight. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's basically, we haven't said anything too new in these last lines. Just like an adult that looks like a child with a good eye, and he shows him like shining face. That's the idea of the countenance that we talk about. Hashem shines his countenance upon you. This is the idea of why is it looking at a child? Because sometimes an adult, you don't look at so nicely. In other words, you see him as a peer, your rachamim doesn't come out. When you see a little kid, it's just like you melt. And you look at him, it's just like this, it's like kind of, you can't take your eyes off him type of thing. It's like there's something about a child, his simple natural beauty, which makes us, we can't take our eyes off them. So that's what he's saying, like an adult who peers at a child with just a good eye, he radiates towards him. His panemius is there. Which means you're giving him something which is really beyond the normal levels, like when he's dealing with his work, dealing with his wife, dealing with his taxes. He's not giving off that type of immense pleasurous flow, which is essentially the Seder Hishtalshelus. The regular life is the normal, orderly Hishtalshelus. So he said, when there's the normal flow, he doesn't see your beautiful deeds, not caught by your beauty, then you get that back-to-back relationship, which is essentially what's drawn into Malchus, the lowest part of Zah, right? The Netzach Hod Yesod, which is the external action part of Zah, that becomes the mochin and the most panemius part of Malchus. And as you end up this Seder Hishtalshelus, with the lowest part of the higher chain dips into the highest part of the lower chain, and so it goes, and so it goes, and so it goes, so you wind up with basically nothing at the end. The kenoda, the nehid, abba ve'ima, naisim mochim lazah. And he says, again, the lowest part of Chochmah and Bina, they become the mind of Zah, and then nehid Zah, the lowest part of Zah, becomes the mind of Malchus, and so it goes, you wind up with just a drop of a drop of a drop of a drop. That's called back to back. But Bechinas ha'aras panim, When you get the countenance, the face, then what you're getting is the essence of God, straight from the top to the bottom. It doesn't go in levels. Because at the end of the day, how does it get there? It's anyway everywhere. Right? It just usually is hiding and allowing this whole system of nature to play itself out. But when you do something within the realm of drawing the peering of Hashem, the senses of Hashem, you release basically through this avenue called the 13 attributes of mercy, which as we said is this tremendous tzimtzum of a hair, which enables infinite light to sort of pop up in the finite world. You go without orderliness and you bring the face of Hashem down below. And again, how do you get there? It's always only by turning darkness into light, sort of, right? In other words, why is it that we're the ones through our avodah and our mitzvahs that can bring upon this revelation of Hashem's essence? It's just like the senses. The senses, we said, they're so low. There's such a contraction. And dafka in that very, very contracted place, somehow they're a kli for the atzmus. Same thing here, because we're at like the bottom of the world. The senses are... That's sort of a symbol of the ultimate contraction, and yet in that place of ultimate contraction, we are the thing of beauty. Because we, in the place of the ultimate contraction, we can have free will, which nobody else has. And it's like we become this beautiful picture, this amazing sound, this wonderful smell. Why doesn't it smell so good in Gan Eden like that? Because they can't be as beautiful, because they don't have free choice. They can't turn the darkness into light. So the essence of Hashem comes out down here, yeah.
I just wanted to clarify, when we do the face-to-face, Hashem goes directly to Malchut. We draw that down by, is it the 13 attributes or the Torah mitzvot? Which one is it?
The drawing down itself is the 13 attributes. In other words, that's the flow. The way it gets
drawn
from
down through the 13.
Yeah, the way it gets from there to here is through these 13 attributes. This hair, which is like this mechanism of bringing infinite into finite. But the way that we draw that down is by smelling good, looking good, and sounding good.
i.e. Torah mitzvahs.
Torah mitzvahs. Kamo kein hu bechinas ria de malchus melamata lamayla. Kamo shekasav esa einai el heharim. So we also look. We also have a stare. And that's the idea of I raise my eyes up to the mountains, from below to above. The David, Shayamer Kava El Malchus, David, who was a chariot of Malchus, he was embodiment of Malchus in this world. Omer Esai Nai El Harim, he says, I lift my eyes to the mountains. What are the mountains? Bechinas Torah Chashucha de Keser. The mountains are the dark mountains of Keser. Why are they called dark? Because they're beyond revelation, right? So it's like he's looking up to like the infinite ayin that he can't, the ayin meaning like nothingness that he can't perceive what it is. That's what it means he lifts his eyes to the mountains, the dark mountains of Keser. Fella?
You look at all these references?
Once in a while.
I don't know what Torah Chashucha is.
He says, the Keser.
I'm seeing it's in the dark mountains of Keser, like that, like...
Yeah. Meaning what?
It's a very vague reference.
Yeah. I mean... Vague reference. Why? Because you never heard it before. Torah Chashucha de Keser. No, I mean, in other words, why are they called mountains? I mean, I hear you.
So it's like Torah de Pruda, like, you know, I hear you saying like it's so lofty, they're calling it dark.
Right, but why is it called Torah de Pruda also? The Torah, the mountain part...
It means vast, it means big, it means...
Right, and so you have...
Lots of separation.
Lots of separation, but also it's like the same Indian. It's coming from the same place. Because it's tohu, right? But tohu, when it's in its place, before it's breaking, it's just an awesome, mighty power that the world can't handle. So, right? So that's why...
Keser?
What's that?
Where's Keser?
Keser's above Atzilus.
It's an Ak?
No. I mean, Keser is a general term actually for everything above Atzilus, is the truth. So Ak would be technically part of Keser. Every world has its Keser, but when we talk about just Keser in general, that means you're going above light in vessels. Right? When you have light in vessels, you're already in the four worlds. So when you have light which is not contained by vessels, you're above the four worlds, you're generally in Keser of Atzilus. Now, in Keser of Atzilus, there's like a million things going on, but all of them have one thing in common, is that there's no vessels that can hold the light, so it's all infinite light. Even in Atzilus, the infinite light sort of even dips down up until Zah, so we say the Sof, almost Ein Sof is Zah. But really, they just sort of have like a leftover of all this infinite light before Atzilus. But
there's the inside and outside, there's Atik and Araf.
Yeah, but again, you could say that Ak is part of Keser, and all Akudim, all these things are part of Keser in general. But the point is that when you're Malchus, and you're looking up at Keser, it doesn't matter which part of Keser you're looking up to. It's all beyond the worlds entirely. It's Malchus, let's say, is a kli for the lights of the Seder Shtalshlus. What's beyond the Seder Shtalshlus is just dark mountains, right? So it looks up. Malchus or David HaMelech raised his eyes to the mountain. The Gam came Shalo B'Hadraga. The Alpis, also in a way which is sort of like unnatural, beyond nature. The Alpis Seder Ishtalshlus Harei Aliyah the Malchus Ibazah, right? Because what's Malchus doing looking at the dark mountains of Keser? If you look up, you hit Zah. In other words, how do you get up so high looking at Keser? You only can see what's directly above you. And what's directly above you is Zah. So if you're going according to the normal Seder Ishtalshlus, when Malchus looks up, it should see Zah. So looking up to the dark mountains, El Harim, to the mountains, it's also a jump of the Seder Ishtalshlus, but it comes from below to above. First it should look at Zah, V'achar Zun Ola Abba Ve'ima. Then, once it connects with Zah, then now together Zah and Nukva can look up to their source, which is with the father and the mother, the Chochmah and the Bina. Or normally when you elevate also step by step.
What is the medium? If the medium coming down is the 13 attribute, what is the medium we can look?
Yeah, that's what he's getting to. In other words, there's a way to sort of look with our senses as well and appear up. Let's see what he's going to say. Kanoda, as it's known that the normal way is you go up step by step. V'kan alihu b'keser. Here all of a sudden you're jumping up all the way into Keser. D'lechein al yidei zeh ma'ayin yavo ezri. Right, it says Esa einai el heharim me'ayin yavo ezri. I lift up my eyes to the mountains, these dark mountains of Keser, says Malchus, and all of a sudden, me'ayin yavo ezri, that my help comes from a state of ayin. Ayin is the level of Keser, which is like the ayin of the Yesh of Chochmah and all the worlds. So somehow, if you're able to look up there, you get a hamshacha from ayin. Behind the fish, yeah? Too fast? What's hamshacha? Yeah, it's definitely too fast. Hamshacha means to be drawn down, to draw something down. Yeah?
And the ayin over here is like the ayin alaki type thing?
The ayin is the ayin of the famous Yesh Ma'ayin. Yesh being the Seder Ishtalshlus, the ayin is above the Seder Ishtalshlus. Right? So, Hainu, Lefisha Bechinas Riyah de Malchus. And again, how does it come about? Is what Shalom was asking. Because the peering of Malchus, Haliyah Va'aratzo, Hu Bechinas Etzem Muhusa Malchus. And here it is. This is the mechanism you were just describing. He gets into it more, but because the peering of Malchus, so Malchus also has her body and her senses, right? Which is basically us. So we get into a state where we also are not just dealing with Hashem from a standpoint of mere intellect or emotion, but like our senses, our very essence is drawn towards Him. By peering at Him, what does peering at Him mean? Like imagining and visualizing the true glory of God through all the meditation that we do, or hearing in a deep sense of panemius hearing. We said different senses work differently. The sight is actually the best, so I'm going in the wrong order here. But hearing is like being misbonin, right? Tasting, we said, was discerning all the different levels. So all of our senses as well can draw our essence. So what it really means simply is drawing our essence to the table. Not having one foot in, one foot out. You can't really be fully there if you're a little bit somewhere else. What's the difference between a tzaddik gomer and a tzaddik she'eno gomer, a complete tzaddik and an incomplete tzaddik? Is that the incomplete tzaddik still has some little place inside of him, even if it's like buttle, it's not showing itself, where he has a feeling for evil, right? Which makes it so that his hatred for evil is not complete. Because once you have a feeling for it, you can't simultaneously have a hatred for it. So it's the idea of putting yourself all in. That's basically what we're dealing with here on a very basic level. How do you draw the dark mountains upon yourself, which is a good thing, right? And bring the Yud Gimel Mizrachim. You have to be all in, which is basically the Rebbe's sort of crying call. You never really hear like a word from the Rebbe, which is kind of interesting, of like the Rebbe's gentle and he's kind, of course, but it's a slave driver. Like we had this in your class that we talked about. The guy was like upset after a while because rightfully so. It's like, where do I get to like relax? You don't get to relax. You can relax, but you lose like that Yud Gimel Mizrachim, and that's what you're going for. So it's an intensity. It's like an urgency. They said the Rebbe even never sat back in his chair. It's just on the edge of the thing because he's all in. That's called the histalkus. The staklus, the peering of Malchus, getting into drawing down the Yud Yumidas Rachmi, bringing your essence to bear. Become a b'mashal agashmi. The Beria nimshach b'chinas ha'atzmus, as we said before, that just like when you stare at something, it's your essence flows into the situation, which does not happen when you merely think or feel. So Malchus is now staring at the Eibishter, David HaMelech, and therefore what does he do? He gets to go, he jumps above the Seder Ishtalshlus. In other words, we're the one that elicits this unbelievable level of Hashem's essence coming down and smelling our sacrifices. Because at the end of the day, what is he smelling that smells so good? Is our good scent, which is our Mesiras Nefesh. So we're the one that causes it, actually. So by peering above the Seder Ishtalshlus, we go out of our own nature, simple as that. Like a normal person would never act like this.
I see.
A normal person would never bring himself to put his whole essence into something which is not even of this world. You're gonna have Mesiras Nefesh on a Minhag Yisrael, nobody knows what they're talking about. You know what I'm saying? And here you put your whole self in. It's not normal. So you jump out of the Seder Ishtalshlus, and Hashem says that's a Yafis Torah. Let me have a look at that, baby. And he starts staring at us, and he brings his essence.
So it would be correct to say when you do Mesiras Nefesh, that is the vehicle by which you can peer up, because effectively you're going out of your
nature.
100%.
And that's sort of like the Rebbe wants us to live in that place 24/7. And the Rebbe Chassidus, you see, it's like that's the idea of being a shliach. What does a shliach do? Right? A plumber plums. An accountant counts. What does a shliach do?
Shliachs.
He's just on a mission. It doesn't matter what his mission is. But the idea of being on a mission is that you're crazed over something. You're a missionary, right? 24/7. That's like defining a person as being a person who is going out of his nature all the time. That's what he wants from us. That's what he's trying to have us call ourselves.
Why? You just need to look.
But you have to look with all your essence,
Why? No, when you look, you're bringing your essence.
Yeah, but only if something really catches your eye. And a normal person doesn't necessarily...
Wow, I'm looking at Torah right now.
But sort of. Remember the story I told you the other day? When the Rebbe would learn Torah, his mother would come in with her friends and show off, saying hey, Mendel, and he wouldn't hear her for because he was peering into it so deeply. We're not peering into things necessarily so deeply, even when we're learning Torah. We could be, but half the class isn't here because they were peering into their bottles last night. How much Mesiras Nefesh are we really having? Okay, Baruch Hashem, we are having a lot more than...
Mesiras Nefesh. No one said you need Mesiras Nefesh. They just said you need to look. When you look,
no, but
you're ready to bring your
stuck
essence
loose.
automatically.
He's stuck loose. No, it's true.
It already has your essence in it.
It's true, my friend. But there's a big difference between being drawn after a beautiful picture and just walking down the road, not necessarily being accessing the true power of your sight. You know what I mean? Yeah?
Yeah.
And not every day is you're hearing the most beautiful sound that makes you have close to nefesh. It could. You have a kli that can do that to you. But are you actually hearing with something beautiful? You have to work, it seems to put yourself in front of a beautiful picture, to put yourself in front of the opera singer, so to speak.
You have to buy a ticket.
You gotta buy a ticket. That's right. It costs you something to have that experience, and that's Mesiras Nefesh. That's what it costs you to go out of your comfort zone. Through this sight, you reach to the essence. Yeah, someone get the Tanakh.
Want to look up the thing?
Yeah, let's get a good translation of this.
Alright.
Shira Shirim. I'm just some people know it all off by heart. It's Shira Shirim specifically, but
Okay.
You have to be Sephardi to do
Not even Ashkenazim know once. Actually, technically Ashkenazim are supposed to do it Friday night too. And Avi Ashkenazi Siddur has it Friday night.
oops, sorry.
And Ashkenazim do it Pesach.
Do they?
Yeah. On the, always on Shabbos Chol Hamoed Pesach.
Last Shabbos one.
Last Shabbos of Pesach, whatever it is. If it's Shabbos Chol Hamoed or if it's last day or whatever, that's when they do it.
I don't know. I think I've seen also Chiluki Minhagim in Chabad, at least, not the Ashkenazi. Okay, let's see a good translation here.
But he surely still was doing that Shabbos before Tori. It was killed off. So I'm going to share.
Hasebi einayach minegdi shehem hirhibuni. Okay, let's see. There's like two translations in here. Let me get the one. So he says, turn your pleading eyes from me, lest I be tempted to bestow upon you holiness more than you can bear. That sounds about right. Okay. Alright, so that's basically what we're dealing with here, right? The dafka b'chinas ria, or hasevi einayach, specifically, in other words, turn your eyes away, because I'm going to pour upon you more revelation than you can bear. In other words, you better be careful with this peering, because you're going to get zapped from the Ori and Sof. Dafka, this seeing, hasevi einayach, nishahem harhivuni, harchivuni. In other words, he says harhivuni is like harchivuni, it makes a expanse. Right? If you're going to turn your eyes on me, you're going to draw from an expanse that is beyond your thinking.
To think?
It's the literal translation of harhivuni.
Yeah.
Like, I'll more than you can bear.
In a negative way, like you overloading or
Overloading, but here he's saying it in a positive. In other words, you're going to get from beyond the Seder Ishtashlus.
okay.
And that's why harhivuni, he says, it basically means harchivuni, which means rachav.
I think it's Harry Woods like Harbe.
He brings from the Tzemach Tzedek, he says, Dafka al tikri harhivuni el harchivuni. Don't read it like this, read it like this. That's the idea, which means that through this, me'orer mizgal v'chiz merchava atzmi. What is the merchava atzmi? Right? It's the essential expanse of the Atzmus Or Ein Sof Baruch Hu. In other words, the idea is that the only way you can get the essential expanse to be your buddy is if you have zero expression, like a point, which doesn't go up, doesn't go down, has no width, no depth, no length,
no ego.
It's nothing, right? It's a theoretical. So then it's shy to have the essential expanse. But as long as you have something, how are you going to fit infinite, 100 billion gallons in a small jar? But if the jar disappears, so then there's nothing stopping the flow. So this idea of this peering, it's literally, like the Rabbi says, great, you gave $1 million, give $2. And there was no satisfaction, no rest, because anytime you sort of like chill out, you gain yourself back again. He wants us to be a Beinoni. A Beinoni is like, it seems like an impossible thing to be, right? But the idea is that he's saying being a Beinoni, it's not impossible, because it's not based on your having to be a special person. It's based on, like in other words, you have a unique soul. Anyone can be a Beinoni. Just what? You have to be relentlessly working, never stop for 1 second.
Like
That's in the possibility of any single person. Where you start, you can always just use your willpower and never stop. But it's crazy. That person wants to rest. I mean, you feel like you're going to drive yourself mad if you don't sort of like take a smoke break. You know what I'm saying? But no, it's like if you want the essential expanse, it's found in your disintegration. It's exactly what we were talking about in the class when we had by you.
It sort of means that you constantly have to make matzot, because the minute you rest, you're getting into leavened bread.
Yeah, exactly. Constant matzah. Oy. Can't even dip it in anything. Okay.
Let's talk more about Kesser.
You like Kesser?
I just don't know what it is, I'm kidding, I already do that.
Kamokein hu ba'avodah d'neshamas Yisrael lamata. This is how it works down here below in our service to God. Sheish bim gam kein beis hamadregas hanal. We also have these two levels. In other words, achor ba'achor, panim ba'panim. Back to back and face to face. V'hainu sha'avodah sha'al pi tam v'das. And these are both called avodas, actually. There's an avoda al pi tam v'das, which means it's an intellectually sound, rational avoda. Bas hasaga misbonus belukus mispal al yidei zeba'av v'yira. It sounds good. That you approach God sort of rationally, which means you meditate on your life situation. You ponder what's good, what's bad, who is Hashem, what's the world, what am I serving, and you get aroused by the realization of God, and it brings you to a love and fear of God. Now, obviously, the level of divinity that you're meditating on is a level of divinity that you can understand. Because how can you meditate upon something you don't understand? So there's the catch. There's the very fact that you are using a rational approach means that you're thinking about the aspects of God which can be understood.
Why?
Which is because you're realizing the how Hashem makes the world.
Or
and
you think
what,
that Atmos is crazy.
but then you can't understand it. So you can't really think that through.
You could get the Avinira from Atmos.
You can, and that's going to be Ofen HaBase, like the second way. But it's not a rational approach. It's a crazed Mesiris Nefesh approach. You can't get that, and it's a completely different type of Avinira as well. The Avinira we're talking about right now is it's like, yeah, it's Al Pidam V'das, and it was you're thinking things through. A person can come in front of a taiva, and he can sit there and be like, I got to think this thing through. Obviously, when you're like wrapped up in your taivas, you need to Baruch Ha'am. You need to run out of Mitzrayim. You can't sit there and think through whether this is good for me or not. You're just overtaken by the taiva. But if you're already sort of on some kind of a level, and you want to, someone offers you something, you have to make a discernment. And at that moment, you can think. And you're going to say, what is this thing really made out of? And we went through all these meditations several times in this course of this discourse. Is I'm going to think about, there's the Gashmias of the thing, there's the Ruchnias of the thing. Right? And where does it all come from? The Ruchnias of the thing is really the life force of the thing. It's the Elokus in the thing. And I want to be connected with Elokus. I have to see through the external shell of this thing. Like you go through a whole process of mamish meditation on rational terms. The very fact that you're thinking through it like that, it means you're dealing with an aspect of divinity which has contracted itself, come into the world, and you can sort of recognize this is the godliness of the thing, this is the shell of the thing, because godliness has been contained inside of a vessel which is blocking it. You see what I'm saying? So you're peering through the vessel, seeing the animating life force of whatever the taiva is, and you're saying, wait a second, it's really God in here. So you're making out the fact that it's Elokus because it's a type of Elokus which presents itself to be something discernible. And therefore, the type of love and fear that is as a product of that is also minimal because it's only love and fear based on intellect, i.e., that's a back-to-back relationship. You take the lowest part of the intellect and it becomes the source of the highest part of whatever emotion you're going to have. But the whole thing is basically based on the mind and hishtalshelus. Is it clear? No.
The whole thing's based on a shalshalas? Oh, if you're using your mind.
If you're using your mind.
Right.
Why? Because you're dealing with an aspect of Hashem which is limited to the point that you can figure it out, fits in your mind.
That's all.
So that must be a contracted form of godliness. Mm-hmm. So that therefore it's achor, it's the back of Hashem.
But even with that, you could use I'll be Tamidas and kind of work your way up.
You can work your way up. But then you go to a state of Mesiris Nefesh where it's called Shtus to Kedusha. You're no longer sitting there discerning. You're being irrational in your approach. Mesiris Nefesh is not really rational. To take it to extremes, it's even that the Torah doesn't really necessarily mandate in a normal sense. What is the finite aspect of Elokus? It's the type of light that invests itself into worlds. It means it comes into contact with vessels and it gets hidden by the vessels, or reduced by the vessels. But no, the lo kol hasaga nimsheches me'ira b'midos shebelev. Right, so now he's talking about what type of love are you going to actually produce. It's known that not the entirety of your understanding is going to fit into the vessel of your heart. Your vessel of your mind is a bigger vessel than the vessel of your heart. So when you're sitting there meditating, you'll get a bunch of light in your mind, but not all of that will fit into your heart. Only an external ray of the mind goes into the heart. And that's called the bechein. Right, like we talked about yesterday, like the uvachein ishtabach, right? Like the final, I've done a lot of meditating, and therefore, it's like you put all that meditation in just one word. Therefore, you take the whole kind of essence of it, and you contract it into sort of a quick feeling, and that's what can affect your heart. So you dispose of all of the vast meditation, because you just want the tamtzitz of it, the little essence, which is going to actually fit into your heart. It's called the bechein of the hisbonenus. Is and what is that? That's the netzach hod yisod. It's the lowest part of the mind becomes the highest part of the heart. Therefore, when you do get excited with your love and fear, it's a true love. This is not like a love of the Yetzer Hara. it's real love of God, that you desire godliness, nevertheless, it's ava mugbelis. It's a very limited level of love. Meaning what? It has a zel u'umat zeh. It has an opponent. That if some other meditation, i.e. the meditation of how good the hamburger tastes, will get into your mind, then this love of God has an opponent which it could fall to. So that's what means a limited love. Because it's based on a contracted godly light, which can fit into a finite mind, kli of the mind, which then contracts it and you only get the external part of that light that fits into the heart. You're dealing with a limited level of godly expression. It can be overturned. And after you daven, which is basically when this love is intended to be generated, what remains is only a small imprint al kol hayom that remains with you for the rest of the day, which again could be overturned if you come into a big test or something. It's only a small level that remains. But when you peer into Hashem, sight, which means you're staring into the glory of the King. What does this mean? It's a different type of meditation. Like you were saying, Mendel, you could take your meditation to a whole other place. First, you're thinking rationally, but then your rational meditation goes into this sort of intense meditation where like the spheros come alive before your eyes. Not necessarily you're seeing spheros, but I don't know if I'm sure you've all had this experience to some degree. It's like your mind's eye becomes awakened, and you're like, oh, it's like kiviyachal, you're seeing the idea, right? It can happen. And and the way it happens is you look at it over and over and over and over and over and over again. This happens whenever sort of like I will prepare, let's say, a sicha to chazar over or something. First time you read the sicha, you're getting aleph, you're getting beis, you're getting gimel, you're getting dalet, like you're getting all this information, but you don't really see you don't see it the way the Rebbe sees it, or not even a little bit. Like you're sort of taking it piece by piece, and then you look at it again. And you know it already, so you're looking for this, you're stirring it up to find like the inside, what's the point, where is this all coming from, what's he really trying to say? Slowly, you memorize it, like you walk around with it all day, you can't get it out of your head, you're literally staring at it. It's like something that everything you say in all your conversations for the rest of the day is somehow an aspect of that. You know what I mean? Like, why, for example, was what came out of my mouth in that speech? It's exactly what we're learning here. That's not coincidental. It's because this is what I'm staring at. So it's just everywhere I'm talking is what I'm talking about since Elul already, right? Because this is what you're staring at. This is like what you're visioning. So he's saying when you stare at something, then now you're dealing with your senses. Now it's not a limited level of divinity. It's riyas mahus de elokus. You're now looking not at a limited aspect of Hashem, because the senses have a way of sort of seeing God Himself. You're seeing the topic itself, so you're looking at the essence of God, as it were. Again, hearing, you're like sort of piecing something together, and you don't really have the thing.
Why is hearing piecing something together?
Because if you think about it, let me tell you about this story about this fireman, right? And he had a red fire truck, and then he had a long white fire hose, and then he had 3 or 4 dogs on the fire truck. You're piecing together something that I'm looking at. I see all those things simultaneously. I'm just telling you piece by piece. That's how hearing works. When you hear, you only hear a piece at a time. You hear the story, you have to get to the end of the story to see what the thing looks like. When you see it, you see the whole thing simultaneously. Seeing grabs the essence of a thing. Hearing grabs the metzias of a thing. Just that, like a smaller expression of it.
But what he's asking from us is, for example, in the Amidah, to be able to be intensely present on every single word. Now, does anybody really achieve that?
Yes, not necessarily anybody in this room, but it is achievable and it is achieved. Again, tzaddikim achieve it on their level, but Beinani, that's what I was saying. Like, no one's stopping anyone here from being a Beinani. No rule of nature. There is a rule of nature stopping us from being tzaddikim, but there's no rule of nature stopping us from being a Beinani. It's just our will. So if you want, even today, to sit and peer over the words of tefillah for 2 or 3 hours and mamish like get somewhere and try and concentrate the whole time. It's not 2 or 3 hours where you're thinking about your other matters. No one's stopping you, right? It's like a war of unbelievable.
But does anybody?
Anyone does it?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is some people, let's say, do it, but I'm not sure if that's really in these days where the Rebbe wants us to put our war. So we're more in a war of like. I mean, for sure, we're supposed to do some job over there. But for example, the Rebbeim of previous generations, They used to daven for a lot longer, at least publicly, than the Rebbe did. The Rebbe, there's a famous story of Mendel Futterfass. I just love the stories, and it's a little bit off the topic, but it's not really off the topic. He came out of Soviet prison. He was in Siberia years and years, and he never saw the new Rebbe because he was connected with the previous Rebbe. Previous Rebbe passed away, but he was in there. He finally was freed miraculously. He came to 770. It was going to be Mincha. He couldn't wait to see the Rebbe daven Mincha. This is the first time he's going to see the Rebbe daven. And Rebbe daven Mincha in 10 minutes. And he was like, what? He's like, it's impossible. This is a Rebbe. He's daven Mincha in 10 minutes. So then all of a sudden it came into his mind. He's like, you know what? This reminds me of the sukkah of the Baal Shem Tov. Because one time the Baal Shem Tov made a sukkah in the minimal kashrus that's possible. It had 2.5 walls, and it had a lavud, everything you can do. It's just barely enough shade over sun. It was minimal, and everyone was coming by. The Misnagdim were saying that the Baal Shem Tov sukkah is puzzled, and he wasn't. It was just barely kosher. And why did he do it? Because he wanted the regular people to realize they can make a sukkah too. You don't have to be so mahuder. Just get the job done. Mm-hmm. So he's like, okay, that's what the Rebbe is. And then all of a sudden the Rebbe starts the Sicha with the words, the sukkah of the Baal Shem Tov. Anyway, the idea is that our avoda is a little bit seemingly different. I don't know, don't quote me on this, but it definitely seems to me that we're not necessarily, that's not our battle, is to sit in davening for 2 and 3 hours. Our battle is to be a frum yid in the world. In other words, to be a shliach means you're like my friend in Tel Aviv. They just got on the nightly news for their Tu B'Shvat Seder, that they're sitting in the studio. The other stories that were in their segment was sex this and Tom Hanks this, and then they got in the news little Mrs. Nadich over there. She's telling the world about Tu B'Shvat. Maybe she's not davening for 6 hours in tefillah, but she's fighting a war, mamish, against the whole world, sneaking herself into the nightly news.
But the whole description here is about being intensely present and peering. How do you do that when you're...
I'm saying it's really about Mesiras Nefesh. The message here is Mesiras Nefesh, bringing your essence to bear. The question is, where do you want to bring your essence to bear? It takes the same essence to not only watching the evening news about the sex and the Tom Hanks, but breaking through into that news. You can't do that unless you're living in a state of Mesiras Nefesh. You're pushing the envelope every second, that your deeds are so impressive to the world around you. They're having hishtachus at you. Look, they want to look at, excuse me the words, but sex and Tom Hanks. That's what they want to look at. It's beautiful to them. The fact that they think it's beautiful to look at Mrs. Nadich serving fruit on Tu B'Shvat means that she's creating some kind of something to look at. So that you can't do that unless you're serving with Mesiras Nefesh.
When you're doing the Mesiras Nefesh, you don't have even the time or the presence to peer. This is what I'm trying to link it with appearing.
Well, no, you do if you're having Mesiras Nefesh in learning, right? If you're having Mesiras Nefesh in davening, because that's what you're doing at that time.
Yeah, I understand.
I think what the Rebbe is saying is not to take the davening lightly, but just peer in a shorter period of time. You got other things to do. It's not like our main avoda is to sit in davening the whole day. When you're in davening, don't take it lightly. Peer like crazy for an hour, and don't take your mind off it. And mamish be a beni for an hour in davening, but be a panimi in everything you do, obviously. But I'm just saying we don't find the emphasis necessarily on that. But there's no reason to say that that's not how your davening should be. You're just a lot less time to it, I guess. Listen, some people still daven about richas. I'm not saying speak to your local mashpia, as it were, but the point is that.
So why do Bacham learn? Why not go inside all day?
There's a seder. In other words, there's time. The Rebbe said in general, your life is broken into 2 parts: before you're married, after you're married. Before you're married, you should have 90% of your work in learning, and 10% of mifsoim. I'm making up these percentages, but it's something like that. Because you can't go on mifsoim if you're not. You have to first of all, you have to build yourself into something. Who are you to? If you know Aleph, teach Aleph, very good. But then you'll be teaching Aleph for the rest of your life. You have to go to Yeshiva and learn tough as well. So 10%, yes, because Torah without Mimus Chasadim is Mishul Omer Einli Al Torah Fiu Torah. But after you get married, it's the other way around. 90% is like you've done that learning. Like your life has changed. Now 90% of the time you're in your work, And 10%, you have to make sure that you're not much a tamim and you never stop being a tamim. Whatever, it's 90-10, whatever it is. I'm just saying, there's a switch. So a bacher, just like there's part of your life you're supposed to be davening. If you're davening, thinking about miftzoim, you're not doing miftzoim, you're not davening. It's like you wasted everything. When you're a bacher, your life is more davening in Torah. That's your seder of your chaim at that moment. But either way, you're having your same Mesiras Nefesh, just in different things. Let's see. Okay, so we're talking about the inyan of loving Hashem with tam v'das, or getting to this point where your meditation goes into a level of vision, where you have this seeing the vision of Elokus, and that's called lachzos b'noam Hashem. You're seeing the glory of God, which is a tainug atzmi shebenefesh. Again, like you get to this place of your senses, of even your meditation. Meditation has like senses to it. You see the glory of God, therefore you feel the essence of Hashem. And this, we're going to stop here, but this draws down the 13 attributes of mercy, the ha'ares panim, the face-to-face relationship.
Shkayach.
I think I told you this.